Howdy folks, it's time for the next video in this series on growing an inexpensive Mittleider garden in your own soil. And we got a comment here, and I think this is the perfect topic to add to this discussion next. How long is your weekly feed going to last, and what is it actually going to cost you to grow a garden using the Mittleider method? Okay. There really is not an easy answer for this. It is not cut and dry. It's going to be determined by a couple of different things. It's going to be determined by the total number of beds that you have in your garden. They're pretty self-explanatory. The length of your growing season, and finally by the variety of plants that you're growing in your garden. All right, we're going to scroll over here and we're going to take a look at the garden planting detail sheet. You can download this spreadsheet for free if you don't already have it from the Mittleider gardening group on Facebook. Go into the file section, look for garden planting detail sheet, and download it. All right, what we're looking at here for these specific plants is going to be the total number of fertilizer, yes, thank you, fertilizer applications. I don't want to, okay, this column here. And it's going to tell you by plant type, over here on the left, how many fertilizer applications that plant's going to get. Now, for this example, I'm going to use cabbage and an indeterminate tomato. Now, say we have a 30-foot bed of cabbage here. Our cabbage is going to need 5 applications of the weekly feed. All right, to make this easy, we're going to assume that all of our beds in our garden are 30-foot length. That is the average Mittleider garden bed length. We're going to go with that. So for our 30-foot row of cabbage, we're going to need to apply 5 weekly feedings of the weekly feed. Weekly feed is applied at 1/2 of an ounce per linear foot. So in a 30-foot bed, we're going to end up using on a weekly basis 15 ounces of weekly feed. Let's go ahead and round that up to 16 ounces, so 1 pound of weekly feed for a 30-foot row of cabbage equals 5 pounds of weekly feed. We're going to need approximately 5 pounds of weekly feed for our garden for the cabbage that we're going to grow in it. Now, let's roll down to tomatoes. An indeterminate tomato is going to get 10 to 12 applications of the weekly feed. Okay, let's again assume that we have a 30-foot row of nothing but indeterminate tomatoes. It gets weekly feed at the same rate as the cabbage, so 1/2 of an ounce per linear foot. 1/2 of an ounce times 30 feet, because it's a 30-foot row, comes out to 15 ounces of weekly feed that is applied on a weekly basis to our tomatoes. Let's round up to make things easy and say 1 pound per week. Let's also say that we're giving it 12 applications of weekly feed. For our garden and for our tomatoes, we would then need approximately 12 pounds of weekly feed to feed our tomatoes. Another 5 pounds for our cabbage. So with this sheet, you can go through and determine what you're going to grow, how many applications of the weekly feed it's going to need. So if you know what you're planting in your garden, you can come here to your garden planting detail sheet, look at the plant that you're putting in, take into consideration how many feet of that plant you're going to grow, and the total number of fertilizer applications that are going to be needed for that particular plant, and you can determine approximately how much of the weekly feed you're going to need. I haven't discussed the pre-plant because the pre-plant you're only going to use once a year, and a big batch like that 40-pound bag that I showed you in the video is going to last you several years. So I'm not even going to calculate up how much of that pre-plant you're going to use. It's applied at 1 ounce per linear foot to every grow bed at the beginning of the year. Simple enough. It's going to last a long time. Now, the actual cost of growing these plants is minute. David Gilmore was in one of the boot camp classes that I went to, and he was an instructor there, and somebody asked this exact question of him. And his answer was that he calculated the cost of growing tomatoes in his garden. From seed to tomato, it was costing him 2 cents per pound to put a tomato on the table. The next video that I'm going to do in this series is going to be starting seedlings from seeds. Buying seedlings at the store can get very expensive, and true to the nature of this video series, we're going to try and keep this as cheap as possible. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to do that. I'll be out in my garden putting seeds in and getting them started. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, or even a topic that you would like me to cover in a Mittleider garden, just let me know.